No one sets the tone more than the President of the United States. And the tone that he sets is one of division, often one of hatred.
This has now become a struggle about good versus evil, and the President of the United States is evil.
This man the flames of his hatred were fanned by a president who kept talking about this caravan of refugees as if they were terrorists.
So as they blame Trump's words for violence, do they realize they're excusing the violent acts themselves while offering a case for leniency for the actual perps? If the actions of evildoers are out of their own control and nothing else could have led to the violence, then how can you even begin to punish these creeps? It's wrong. Meanwhile, for both the bomber and the shooter, President Trump, Mr. Law and Order, pushes the death penalty. There is no ambiguity there. He places the blame firmly on the dirtbags, and like most Republicans, seeks out the stiffest penalty, literally the stiffest. This contradicts the media, who see Trump as a hateful ringleader who sympathizes with such cretins. Speaking of those suspects, they were total losers, failures in life who placed their rage on others. And anyone with an opinion could provide a trigger. Because words can influence. It's why there's advertising. But that's a scary path to take, especially for Hollywood, rap stars, and video game makers, or even people paid to speak carefully and thoughtfully.
The President of the United States is racist.
Even Albert Einstein may have ended up in a Nazi concentration camp with Donald Trump's viewpoint on immigration.
If you vote for Trump, then you, the voter, you, not Donald Trump, are standing at the border like Nazis going, you here, you here.
So you want hate? You spend 2 years calling a guy Hitler, a racist, a traitor, and insane. Then you blame him for violence because of nicknames? No lectures from you, kids. But even more, to cite words as the cause eliminates the suspect's entire history and the slew of variables that brought him to commit his crimes. It makes no sense legally or morally, but politically, I guess that's another story. After all, why let a crisis go to waste? Except that you'll make another one far worse. All right, Lisa, they didn't waste any time. I mean, I guess we saw it coming, that they would pin the blame on Trump.
Well, absolutely, if you've been paying any attention to the media since President Trump even announced. But look, there's obviously a complete double standard in the media. We know this. When something happens to Republicans, the media and the left say that we need to have civility on both sides. When something happens and is directed at Democrats, it is purely Republican and President Trump's fault. But it's also just intellectually dishonest, because if you look at the mail bombing suspect, this guy has a rap sheet going back to 1991. He made a bombing terrorist threat in 2002. And then if you look at the synagogue shooting, this guy hated President Trump because he didn't think he was an anti-Semite. So if you actually look at the facts, it doesn't drive the narrative that the media is driving. But the only reason they do it is because the midterms are around the corner and they want to hurt President Trump.
Juan, can I play Sarah Sanders responding to a reporter about this whole mess? Go.
Why is he out there? When you say he's trying to unite the country, why is he out there
the very first thing that the president did was condemn the attacks both in Pittsburgh and in the pipe bombs. The very first thing the media did was blame the president and make him responsible for these ridiculous acts. You can't start putting the responsibility of individuals on anybody but the individual who carries out the crime. He's delivered on the promises he's made, and if anything, I think it is sad and divisive the way that every single thing that comes out of the media, 90% of what comes out of the media's mouths is negative about this president.
So, Juan, my question to you is, I think you can hold two opinions, that Trump's discourse, you will say, is divisive, and I can say that because he's pugnacious, so you know it's divisive, but that also mass killers are responsible for their actions alone. Don't you think that tying that together and putting it on him is politically opportunistic?
Politically opportunistic.
I led you with the answer.
No, but I want to engage you seriously, because I think this is such a serious topic. But I think that you're right. There are two thoughts, and they can be held simultaneously.
Right.
In other words, that in fact you have to hold the culprit responsible for his individual action. It's also the case that the president engages in divisive speech. And that's the problem here. I think that he's upped the ante in terms of that divisive speech. So part of it, and what I heard in your monologue and from Lisa, is blame the press, that the press is not fair to him, and he's gone back now to the press is the enemy of the people. But I think this goes, from my perspective, beyond that, because his rhetoric is so intense that I think it has, sort of created an atmosphere of more kind of dissonance and vitriol than we're accustomed to. To my mind, what we've seen the last week or so, it makes me wonder, is this America? How did we get to this point? And then over the weekend, just put me aside, because I just worry that, say, oh, well, that's Juan Williams, there's the press again. But here, 35,000 people, Greg, saying the president will not be welcome in Pittsburgh unless he denounces white nationalism. And here's words from this group. This is a Jewish group, Bend the Arc. They say, for the past 3 years, your words, your policies have emboldened a growing white nationalist movement. You yourself call the murderer evil, but yesterday's violence is the direct culmination of your influence.
Okay, I don't know much about that group, but I do know, I think we have tape from CNN when they were actually asking this specific rabbi from that synagogue about whether Trump was welcome there. I think we have that. I'm talking slow enough so you can set it up. Would that work?
President Trump has talked about coming to Pittsburgh and coming to your synagogue in the aftermath of this. Do you want him to come?
The President of the United States is always welcome. I'm a citizen. He's my president. He's certainly welcome.
There you go. Kilmeade, what are your thoughts on what, if you care to respond to Juan about his feelings?
I don't know any of those groups.
Okay.
I don't know any of those groups, but it sounds like Democratic talking points. Sounds like something Tom Steyer said on CNN on Sunday, who I didn't ever say talk besides the ads that he bought and the money he made. I was just stunned. If you asked me when this happened, first the bombers discovered to the shooting at the synagogue, I thought maybe by Sunday, on a Sunday show, some pundit looking to get a network contract would go ahead and say, I think the president's to blame. I did not know the same night, the same day, within an hour, they said, ha, look at what you see. What the president does, and it works to his detriment, is he watched everybody talk about all this. And it had him seething, as if we were sitting outside the glass listening to the five talk about us. For him, he's listening to this, and he's outraged. So what does the president do? Exactly what he did his entire life at the Trump Organization, as a candidate and as a president. I'm going to go tweet out. I'm going to speak out. You guys are blaming me for this. You're making it worse. The way you treat me has my 60 million who voted for me and maybe more seething, ready to go. Now, that has nothing to do with that lunatic in Florida and that nutcase in Pittsburgh. But I do think that there's a sense out there that Trump and his supporters have been categorized like as white nationalists because they voted for him, and they're tired of it, and he's speaking for them.
I don't think it's about voting for him. I think that if you look back at some of the actions, not only the bomber and then the shooter, but I mean, go back to Charlottesville, Proud Boys, and all this kind of stuff, that there's a growing white nationalist rage in this country, and people are like, whoa.
You do realize, though, that President Trump's daughter is Jewish. His son-in-law is Jewish. His grandchildren are Jewish. I actually think President Trump has a special spot in his heart for the Jewish community. You see that in his actions as well, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, being the first sitting president to visit the Western Wall. So I think that is often not talked about in this national dialogue is the fact that this is so close to the president.
One of the things, Lisa, that really bugged me about Charlottesville, everybody put it in terms of the Confederate statues, black, white, but they had guys with tiki torches and automatic weapons standing outside a synagogue so the Jewish people had to exit through the back door. And those same guys said, oh, what a shame that Mr. Trump would allow his beautiful daughter to marry a Jew.
They were universally condemned.
Let me get Dana in here. The media, oddly enough, didn't mind Louis Farrakhan's tweets earlier this week where he compared Jews to termites, but we'll not go there. You had Andrew McCarthy on your show, and I made a really important point that back in the 70s, the United States was a much smaller country. I don't know how many by millions, but had many, many more of these kinds of attacks. So
and in fact, it was the New York Times yesterday had this amazing report. It was like it was on their website, like really well done. I'd point anyone to it. It was actually talking about 1968 because it was the 50th anniversary. And we're looking at this now that in 1968, just how divisive things were. I do think we all have to keep in mind that keeping a red line between speech and violence is really important. That's how America was founded.
Exactly.
I also feel like the president could figure out a way to read the room a little better, and that means like the country, right? Like take a couple minutes, like tap the brakes just a little bit, because for better or worse, people tend to look up to leaders. and they want to feel better about the moment. And if the moment becomes about him and the media's treatment of him, then we're just right back down into it. And then somebody's going to have to step forward and do something. Can I just add one last thing?
Sure.
I know we got to go. And that is the issue of radicalization of people. We talked about this a lot during the war on terror. How does it happen, right? Well, you have hopeless people, purposeless people, people who are ignorant, and then they find purpose in something that they find somewhere now is online. So if you have radical Islamists, how do they find it? And there's something there's something. I don't necessarily think it's speech, but there is a culmination of it. And if you look at this guy's background, Boyer's background, he certainly had it, right? He turned evil and vile into violence. And what we should be talking about is what the president said is, I'll do everything in my power to stop it from happening again. Okay, so what is in your power to do? And that's some pretty uncomfortable conversations about privacy and the ability to, we can prosecute very well. What we don't seem to be able to do as well is to prevent.
Right, and then you think about what prevented institutionalization was there for unstable individuals. We don't have that anymore. There are a lot of unsavory, unstable people. We don't know where to put them. And this other guy, the bomber, everybody, he was hiding in plain sight, apparently.
His 5 minutes before he left, he posted, I can't take this anymore, because he couldn't take any more refugees coming in, and supported by the Jewish community. So if it was 5 minutes before, it was from 5 minutes from posting to shooting.
Yeah.
As composed as Barack Obama is and his charismatic, great speech, I get it. But if he was blamed for the South Carolina shooting, for the Gabby Gifford shooting, if he was blamed for Sandy Hook, he might fly off the handle too.
All right. Are you kidding me? What you got there is a contrast between someone who talked about hope and change and someone who presses the fear button and demonizes the immigrant caravan and then opens the door to suggestions that Jews are somehow responsible for the caravan.
It's not the language. We got to go. Another caravan coming towards the U.S., and the Trump administration sending 5,000 troops to greet him. That's next.
To the border as early as tomorrow in anticipation of the migrant caravan moving across Mexico toward the U.S. This comes as Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen offers a very direct message for all migrants trying to get into the country illegally.
There's a legal way to enter this country. Those who choose to enter illegally will be stopped. My general message to this caravan is do not come. You will not be allowed in. There is a right way to emigrate to the United States, and this is not it.
Ryan, 5,000 troops, that's no joke.
It's no joke. I'm not sure what they can do, but I love the deterrent. I hope they arrive with barriers and blockages so people get the message. I believe this is all about sending a message. I don't love the price tag. Department of Defense got a lot of money to do a lot of important things overseas. I didn't think it was going to be in the southern border of Mexico, but somehow we have to send a message. And taking the children away from the families, I don't know if you heard, not a good move. It was meant to be a deterrent and it ended up being horrendous. So in this aspect, I like the move. I like the check that was signed. It shows he's taking action. What I find stunning from a political point of view is I don't hear any outrage from Democrats. Senator Schumer, where's Nancy Pelosi saying, I prefer the illegals come in here? What I saw was the mocking tone of Barack Obama saying as if people are scared. People aren't scared of these people coming through our border. We understand their plight. We think that we should come up with a better way to maybe expedite their admission or evaluation, but this is not the way to get here.
Well, the other thing is that this is also going to cause some consternation with what the troops are actually allowed to do. And it could be that the president makes a speech this week saying that he's going to take some executive action to try to figure out a way so that the troops can do more than just support. We don't know that for sure, but it could be coming.
The hard part about it is defining what the plight is. What is the plight? Hot Air had a piece yesterday about how the caravan is denying assistance for asylum in Mexico. So that makes me think that their status as refugees might be slightly exaggerated because, you know, if you're a refugee, you don't turn away help when you really need it, when you're with your family, unless they just don't like Mexico, which isn't very nice for a country that close to you and you're turning down. That doesn't make any sense. The logical conclusion here is if you wave caravans through, more will come. So that's why you have to be a hard ass in life. That's the sad part. This isn't happening. This caravan is not going to happen. And encouraging it is a really sick joke.
There's another one coming.
I know. But we're talking about, we talked the A block about how rhetoric can lead to action or influence action. There are these people are being encouraged to do something that is not going to end well for them. The crowd's getting angry. There was already a story today about them chasing some fella because they thought he was a kidnapper. So you're going to end up with a large, hungry, sleepless, angry group.
Yeah, not good. Juan, do you think the Democrats are not talking about it because they want to just keep the focus on health care for the next 8 days?
Yeah, I think that the Democrats need a stronger, clearer message on this, Dana, and I'm disappointed that they don't have it because I think the message could be that this is a humanitarian crisis and that America has always been a nation of immigrants and that we are a compassionate people, conservative or liberal, and that there should be an effort to make sure that the source of this problem is dealt with back in Honduras, back in Guatemala. But to me, what you're seeing here is the president, I think, ramping up. Remember, last week he was going to send some troops to the border, about 800, I believe. Now it's up to thousands. And I think this is all about his upset that the bombings, the shootings are dominating coverage in the American narrative at the moment, as opposed to his demonization of these immigrants as some kind of invading horde.
Maybe they have found that because the caravan keeps growing and because it's not just the caravan, but they have over 650 attempts to cross the border illegally every day, regardless of the caravan. Your last thoughts, Lisa?
Well, and it's kind of hard to not address this when you have thousands of people coming to the United States trying to exploit our laws. And the reason why Democrats like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer aren't talking about this is because immigration has been a losing issue for the Democratic Party. You even have liberal groups like the Center for American Progress sending out a memo to Democrats in competitive districts saying them to avoid this issue, don't talk about it. Yep. Sanctuary city attacks pack a punch. So that's why Democrats aren't talking about it. But I think President Trump should give this speech tomorrow and talk about the laws that need to be changed, because you have Central American migrants that are coming to exploit laws like loopholes in a 2008
Not Mexicans.
Because of loopholes in a 2008 anti-human trafficking law, which makes it more difficult to send Central American unaccompanied minors back, unlike where it's much easier to send Mexicans and Canadians back. You also look at things like the Flores Decree. Seeking asylum is really easy. The threshold is way too low. You've got 80% of people will pass their first initial interview, but only 20% will be granted asylum in the immigration court. So I think President Trump should take this opportunity to address all that and talk about why those laws need to change so we avoid this being an issue in the future.
And we have to do something about the drug cartels, something. Okay, the midterm elections are just over a week away. So how will all these developments that we've been talking about impact voters? We're going to debate that next.
So on the flip side, maybe don't you slip slide on a tear when you find me gone.
Less than 2 years' time, we have created over 4.2 million new jobs and lifted over 4 million Americans off of food stamps.
Just 8 days until the midterm elections, and President Trump, he's loading up on campaign rallies. The president planning to hit several states in the final stretch with stops in, and here I'm going to list them for you: Montana, Missouri, Tennessee, Indiana, West Virginia, Ohio, and 2 visits to the great state of Florida. As you just heard him say, his focus will be on the economy and the border. So while Trump is hoping his push drives voters to the polls, a new report in The Hill says Democrats continue to sound alarms that their party lacks a persuasive message. Greg?
Yeah, they lack any message. But you know what? The rallies are interesting.
Healthcare.
It's part of the reciprocity. Rough weekend. Trump comes out to your town to entertain for free. So the very least you can do is vote. That's kind of how it works. He's always a salesman. He's the guy who comes to your house to show you the encyclopedias. So then you sit there for a couple of hours and go, you know what? I'll buy the encyclopedias. And that's important, I think, because it's a difference between there might be 1% to 2% people, Republicans, who might not vote, to sitting on the couch, but because he came out there, he'll go and do it. He's like a political personal trainer. He gets you out of bed, full of caffeine, and sends you to the polls.
Dana, as you heard Brian say, some people think the Democrats' message is health care. Nancy Pelosi said health care, lowering the cost of prescription drugs, taking money out of politics. What do you say?
Well, it is health care for the Democrats, and it's not wrong. They're not wrong. And I look at Claire McCaskill in Missouri. She's in a tight race against Josh Hawley. She's a little bit behind there in Missouri. She came up with her closing argument is your health care, your vote. So they are all in on this. They're not going to pay attention to the caravans, et cetera. We are past the persuasion stage. We are completely at get out the vote. And also the other thing is that Democrats have so much money, tons of money flowing into all these congressional districts. Well, one of the things that's happening for the Republicans is they're realizing that the Democrats' map is expanding in the House in very tight races. Now they have to put money into them, and they're trying to figure out how can we actually try to match this money that the Democrats have. They probably can't. So the president going out there is good for, especially for the Senate, but it might not be able to help them save the House.
Elisa, one of the ads being put out by the president's team, Brad Pascal, his 2020 manager, has put money into an ad that says basically the economy is better. Things are getting better, folks. That's the message?
Yeah, it's all true. Well, the point, it's drawing a contrast of saying, look, the economy's gotten better. Do you want to go back to days before that? And that's what would happen if Democrats get elected and take over the House, because ultimately the government would be at a standstill. So, I mean, that is a right message. My understanding is President Trump is not in the ad, which is probably smart, too, because there are 24 districts where Hillary Clinton won. So you've got a lot of these districts that might not take to the president being an ad. So I think that's a smart decision on their point. I think in the Senate, I feel pretty comfortable where things stand, but the House is tricky just because you have so many Republicans that aren't running for re-election. So you have a lot of open seats, which are more difficult to win. And there's just so many competitive seats, and Democrats only need to net 23. So I'm a little bit worried about the House. But the fact that we went from talking about this big blue wave to now real clear politics, listing the House in totality as a toss-up and not being able to call it is probably a good sign for Republicans.
538 said, what is it, 85% chance that the Republicans lose the House, but they also had a 79% chance that Hillary Clinton would win the election. So can you say fallible? Number two is, I do know two prominent Republicans who have both said they're very concerned about the money from Michael Bloomberg that is coming in late, that's going right into their smaller races. But my thing is, if you said that everybody's decided it's about getting out the vote, is an ad making your guy look like the worst, or your woman look like the worst thing ever going to actually change somebody's mind? And we're going to find out soon if everyone has been scared underground to admit that they're voting for President Trump. Most people said, you know what, I don't need the blowback. I'm not going to tell anyone who I'm voting for. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. I'm not going to talk at Thanksgiving. And then when the vote comes in, if it again goes to Trump's direction, I don't know how Democrats get up the next day.
Also, could I just say that the Democrats are really counting on young voters and Latino voters. Both of those groups tend not to turn out for the midterm, and so they're counting on something that might not be there.
All right, so you know what still surprises me is the low level of impact the economy and the tax cuts are having for the Republicans. Clearly, they've made the decision that's not the winning ticket, and that's why we see the caravan. But is the caravan as powerful as saying to people, hey, the economy's not that bad, your wages aren't great, but come on.
You know what? I do think that the economy. Here's the challenge that Trump has. So many things are going so well that you have to it's like, okay, so nobody's thinking about the economy because it's great. Now, as for the caravan, it's a visual representation of a larger issue. Many people may say, why do you care about the caravan? It's 1,100 miles away. But what it is, it's a promise, it's a threat that it's coming here. It's a visual representation of the fragility and vulnerability of your border. So if you believe in strong borders, that is your visual representation. That's why it's powerful. That's why the wall is visual.
Yeah, no question. But the thing is, it seems like more culture wars. And people are just...
Borders aren't cultures. Border is your country.
Well, the economy will have a bigger impact looking ahead at 2020 in the presidential race. It's for midterm elections, it's your base issues. What's driving out the base? For the left, it's health care. For the right, it's immigration.
8 million people have already voted, which they say is on level, judging by the population proportion, as the highest for a midterm turnout since 1914.
Yeah.
Which we look for good news.
Amazing.
That's good news. People are actually showing up.
Yeah, I think people are highly energized because this is an election about Donald Trump. By the way, I don't know how many of you voted this weekend, but I had a sticker that said, I'm an early voter.
Good for you, Juan.
I'm going to vote on
I
the
feel
actual
virtuous.
day because I believe in that.
Yeah.
When is it?
Next time.
I don't even know. I don't even know where I'm supposed to go.
You know
I can
what
tell you
it
how to
is?
find out. It's
I
very
think
easy.
the Republicans thought you were black and sent you one of those messages. Hillary Clinton increasing speculation about running for president in 2020. What she said over the weekend, boy, she's raising eyebrows. Stay with us on The Five.
Oh, this is my block.
Why I'd like to be president.
Okay.
But if she doesn't run, Democrats may have another interesting option. Anti-Trump attorney Michael Avenatti. According to a new Politico report titled "Avenatti Quietly Builds a 2020 Machine," he has a team of veteran Democratic advisors, some of which are Clintonites, by the way, helping him plan a presidential campaign. He'll make a decision by January 1st. But let's start with Hillary Clinton. What did she mean by that, Dana?
Well, it's like travel. I like to be in places. I don't like to travel to places. So she would like to be president.
I can help you
without. I know you have that idea.
Yes.
She'd like to be president, but she doesn't have to go through she doesn't want to go through the difficulty of running for president.
Can I add to that and interrupt?
Yes.
She doesn't want to run, but she wanted to be president. So it's essentially 2016.
Yes, exactly.
No, so this is the ultimate arrogance. She's saying, like, you know what? Just make me president.
Right. Because it was her turn.
Yes.
That was one of the knocks on it. But also, if you look at somebody like a McCain or a Romney, they lost. Okay, McCain decided to run for re-election in the Senate. Romney, he lost the presidency, took some time off, and he decided, I still want to serve, so he's running for Senate. He'll be the next senator.
What about Al Gore? Hey, I lost a heartbreaker, and that's it.
But the other thing is, every time she does this, it prevents somebody else from being able to emerge.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. She's on
Avenatti.
Tell me if this sounds familiar, Juan Williams. She's going to be on a 13-stop listening tour or speaking tour with her husband. That sounds a lot like, I might run for Senate. I'm going to take a tour with Pat Moynihan and just go on a listening tour and find out what the people of New York State want. And don't give them that, but that's a side note. But this sounds like she's laying the groundwork for another run.
I think your fantasies are out of control on this Monday.
What about you? What do you think?
No, she's not. She clearly said she's not running, but she said, and I thought it was an expression of truth, that she wishes she was president. She wishes Donald Trump had lost. I mean, that's the truth.
But you know, too, that she also said she wasn't going to run when she was Secretary of State and was asked on the Sunday show.
That's more run-up. But, I mean, the situation has changed. I am curious about Avenatti.
Right.
Because I just don't see how Avenatti got in trouble last week for saying it has to be a strong white male to take on Donald Trump. But you know what? He thinks he's the strong white male.
How do you feel about that, Greg? Avenatti running. He says, I'll decide by January 1st. He's putting a team together. He only owes $4.3 million and has an ex-wife that wants $200,000 a month.
Could he be their Trump? Could he be the out of nowhere, dark horse? I'm going to say no, because I don't think he has any talent. He fashions himself as a bare-knuckled brawler, but when he gets out into the street, he loses every fight. Every single fight he loses.
Well, exactly. He's not clever or interesting enough to be 2020's President Trump. But look, regarding Hillary, Greg is absolutely right. She's entitled, and this is what it speaks to. I don't think she actually likes campaigning. I don't think she actually likes being among people. If you go back, even remember in 2015 when her and Huma went into the Chipotle and they had sunglasses on and they couldn't be bothered to talk to anyone. I think that was her problem all along. And I actually wrote a column about this in 2014 for FoxNews.com, saying that she was going to be 2016's Mitt Romney. In the sense, like, just Mitt Romney, he was, even though he's a really good guy, and we all know that, and he's a good person, he just had this inability to connect with voters and be among the people.
Lisa,
and Hillary Clinton had the exact same problem.
More of a staffer. Put her Secretary of State, Secretary of Commerce, but don't make her run for that position. Let me ask you, on Avenatti, Dana, is it true or false? Right now, they kind of like the fact that he took on Trump and had some early victories, but these Democrats are going to turn on him quickly,
I don't think Democrats think much of Avenatti. Yeah, they might have liked that for a while, but I think that they recognize the dangers of it. We've talked in the commercial break about the problems that DNC has right now, that they are looking at the possibility of 30 candidates or maybe 35 candidates that think that they could all be president of the United States. They have much bigger problems than just worrying about Avenatti. But I do think it's pretty interesting. He's already hired staff, like Democratic staff.
These are established people.
The Democrats, they're very good at cutting people off for other opportunities. They should probably deploy.
Get rid of him. He's
bad. But I'm telling you.
You know what this is, Brian? This is part of the fact that American politics is not your daddy's American politics, and that people are now looking for someone who is what would you call it, an alley fighter, backyard.
You don't like Avenatti, do you?
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But I think that if you said, what is the positive about Avenatti, Lisa?
Nothing.
You would say, oh, this guy he'll get up and he'll get in Trump's face. Remember Biden saying,
he loses, to Greg's point.
What?
I said he loses.
I don't know, but
Trump
I'm saying
wins.
what you want is somebody who is as bellicose, as bullying as Donald Trump.
I don't think so, Greg. I think the winner of this, tell me what you think of this theory, and don't be afraid to agree with me. I know it's a weird place for you to be. I believe the person that runs successfully against Trump does not fight him, compliments on things he's done, say, I would have done things different, because Trump is not great. If you don't put your chin out, if you don't put your chin out, he doesn't really hit you. If you come out and just respect what he's done, but say, I don't like the tone, he might be or she might be successful.
So that was basically a long-winded opinion fashioned as a question. you were just telling everybody what you thought.
Tell me what you think. What do you think of my theory?
I zoned out. I'm thinking about ribs. It's
But
5:42.
it's not Tuesday.
No, I'm looking forward to Chinese ribs.
Okay.
Extra sauce.
It sounds delicious.
Yes.
You had a chance to agree with me and change the narrative.
Exactly.
No, Brian, I feel for you, because normally he goes after me, but that was a low shot at my man, Brian.
I'm worried about his ADD. He couldn't stay with 3 sentences. It's really kicking in. All right, let me tell you what's coming up next, because my prompter is on and the camera's looking right at me. Parents, listen up. Your kids could get arrested for trick-or-treating. We explain that next. That wasn't much of a tease.
Day night. But how old is too old for the sugar-filled tradition? Some cities are now banning anyone over the age of 12 from trick-or-treating, and one city in Virginia says you could be found guilty of a misdemeanor and also sent to jail. All right, so Greg, how old is too old for trick-or-treating?
It's never too old. But my feeling is, I changed my mind on this. If you are not hurting anyone,
right,
and you want to participate with people in a positive way, rather than sit home on your computer and troll people, but you actually might want to go outside and see your neighbors, why narrow that opportunity? But I know what this is about. This is to dissuade tricksters, not trick-or-treaters, but teenagers who go out and throw eggs and stuff that Kilmeade used to do.
Never.
My real issue, though, is I think we need to introduce more trickery. When people go up to your door and they say trick or treat, no one ever gives them a trick. They only give them a treat. I think we have to change that. And there has to be a risk involved, some kind of trick. And I'm not going to say what it is.
We've become a nation of Pavlov's dogs.
Right?
You got that backwards.
What do you mean?
The trick, it would be that if you don't give me a trick, if you don't give me a treat, I'm going to play a trick on you.
Well, Brian, Greg
that could
took
explain it. That's why the police arrested me last year.
Greg took some swipes at you. Would you like to defend yourself?
No one listens to
By the way, I love your costume.
But I would say this. I am so into this talking point because I believe that Halloween is totally out of control.
Why?
If you do not want to sit in the audience at a children's show, if you don't want to go to Romper Room if that's still on, if you don't want to go watch The Electric Company if that's still on, or Wonderama, if you're too old for those shows, you should not be trick-or-treating. It's for kids.
It's a war on
great.
Halloween.
It is a war on Halloween.
Dana, but isn't 13-year-old a kid? I mean, 13 is
I
pretty
think, look,
darn young.
when you're like 13, 14, I think that you could still maybe go trick-or-treating. I lived in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill for a long time. We did the whole thing one year. We really wanted to do it up. We got all sorts of candy. And it was a really bad scene because there was hardly any children that were under the age of 15. And it just became a nightmare. So that in the future, what we did is I got home really early, and then I went upstairs and turned off all the lights and went to bed.
Yeah, that's what everyone does. You leave a bowl in front of your house.
But I like the little kids. I like to see them dressed up.
That's fun. It's a kid's holiday. If you're an adult, you should not be celebrating Halloween.
Why do you take such strong stances?
But you know what the problem is, Brian? It's become an adult holiday. Not even for the older teenagers.
I can't wait for November 1st.
But I'm just telling you, boy, the parties now, the adults, and this past weekend, people in fancy costumes in the clubs, and it's big. But here's the thing.
I was in New Orleans over the weekend. Everybody was dressed up.
That's what I'm saying. Okay.
What were you doing there? Huh?
Battle of New Orleans. It's now out on paperback.
Oh, that was good. But I will say, I think it oftentimes, at least in my neighborhood, becomes an income thing. Because I think what you see is that the poor, older teenagers come out. And they're having fun, but a lot of people are like, hey, why is this kid knocking on my door? It's late at night.
But they're not even dressed in costume usually. That's the problem.
Yeah, so, I mean, but I think that's what this is about.
Way to blame the poor, Dana.
Oh, God.
They can't afford costumes? Why can't poor people dress up better on Halloween? By Dana Perino, Fox News opinion.
Fox News.
I'll be fired tomorrow.
There was a funny opinion piece in the New York Post, and the guy writes, we're not arresting 50-year-old men who dance awkwardly in clubs or 30-year-old women who still scream woo when they drink too much. So basically just saying, I mean, look, you're like 13, 14, 15.
I don't like it that they're going to give them
Come
a
on.
misdemeanor. You don't need to give a 13-year-old a record.
Lock him up.
Right.
Lock her up.
Well, and there's also laws if you're looting and stuff and it seems unnecessary to
Now you can't loot?
Now you can't loot.
You can't have
Remember
any
the good
fun
old
anymore.
days?
Everything's ruined. All right, well, you know what is not ruined? One more thing, because that's up next. Stay tuned.
Okay. All right. Today is a special day at Fox News. We've just announced the launch of our new premium subscription service, Fox Nation. It starts November 27th. It's an on-demand service with daily live opinion shows and documentaries. It features exclusive content from your favorite Fox News stars. And for a limited time, we're offering a chance to become a part of Fox Nation by signing up as a founder. And if you do that, you'll get exclusive merchandise that's only available between now and November 27th. And if you sign up early for Fox Nation, you could also get the chance to spend Election Day with some of your favorite Fox News stars, excluding Greg. There will be book signings. I'm kidding. Greg will be there. There will be book signings, giveaways, food, and meet and greets right here on the Fox News Square, or Fox Square. Just head over to foxnews.com. You click on Fox Nation Election Experience for more info. And it's very exciting. We're excited about all of the hard work that's gone into this, and it's about to bear fruit. And also, you're not going to want to miss the 5 tomorrow because Jesse and I went to this.
Why do I have to go first? Dana, can you go first?
No, I can't. I'm so scared.
Please.
Okay. The worst part about it is we had to wear GoPros, and so you have a picture of our faces the entire time. I was a terrible colleague and hid behind Jesse, but you'll see that whole package tomorrow on the 5.
All right, so I got to plug my book signing is going to be at this event.
Yes.
What day is it?
November 27th.
November 27th. I'll be there. I don't think Brian Kilmeade will be there because his book isn't that good.
No, it's Election Day. No, Election Day.
Oh, it's Election Day. Jeez Louise.
It's a little different.
It's a week
different between that
a week from tomorrow.
But the streaming starts on the 27th.
27th, but I'll be there to sign books on Election Day.
Either that or 3 weeks from then.
Yes, all right.
So vote for Greg.
Let's do this. Greg's drone news. I think drones are adorable, but what's more adorable than regular drones? How about tiny drones that join together to help make the world a better place? These are little drones working together to open up a door. And the door weighs 40 times, or actually is 40 times as larger than these little drones.
Why are you showing us this?
Because I'd just like to show you what drones can do. They're now opening doors for each other. And then what you don't see is once they go in, they steal everybody's underwear.
It's a happy tale. Just drones helping other drones.
Drones helping people. Speaking of drones, I thought it was Brian. It's actually Juan.
What? All right. Like droning on.
Hey, did you ever think of a banana as a fortune cookie? Well, one cafeteria manager in Virginia Beach, Virginia, had just that idea. Stacy Truman started what she calls Talking Bananas. She's giving kids inspiration at Kingston Elementary School by writing uplifting messages on the banana peels before she hands them out. Her motivational messages include never give up, smile, you are loved, keep on trying. Truman says most of those messages came from what she tells her own children or what she'd want to hear herself. So what happened? The principal, Sharon Strubridge, posted pictures of the fruit on Twitter, and it all went viral. And now the principal says she wants other schools to follow and inspire kids to new heights of confidence and achievement.
I have to say those messages have quite an appeal.
All right.
Why am I alive, Ryan?
All right, so over the weekend, I had a chance to promote, because he just dropped on Tuesday.
Somebody's hip.
Andrew Jackson, The Miracle of New Orleans, is now out on paperback, and I put a new afterword in, and I had a chance to do something I should have done with the hardback, but I didn't have time, and that's go to actually New Orleans. So I had a chance to speak at an event with Ron Drez. He's a decorated Marine who might be the premier historian in the country, and I had a chance to talk there in a beautiful afternoon. That's what we look at when we stand next to each other. He's taller. And then I had a chance to actually go out and meet 3 nuns. Ursuline nuns came here in the 1730s, and it was Andrew Jackson who visited them, and they said, if you win, can we stay? And they say, absolutely. They said, we're going to pray for you to win. And Andrew Jackson believed that the Ursuline nuns' prayers during the battle gave them the unfathomable victory where we defeated the British in 45 minutes and did something Napoleon couldn't. Napoleon lost to the same guys. That's just a point. Then, of course, we're going to be at Grand Rapids, Michigan, as well as Elkhart, Indiana.
One person after.
And that'll be on Friday.
Say no Fox and Friends, okay? Lisa.
Grand Rapids and Elkhart, Indiana. We'll be there.
All right. Well, I think we've got a picture of a little cutie named Blake Momfer from Ohio, who's 5 years old. He was born with spina bifida and has been wheelchair bound most of his life. Well,